what made me decide to throw my hat in the ring, so to speak. I'm an HR business partner at the Met, and I just felt like my tools and resources representing the people in a work environment could translate really well to representing the people and advocating for them. I just looked outside my doorstep and, kind of scratching my head as a millennial. I consider myself a bit of a change agent. So feeling as though, if I may share, like being a millennial, we're considered the most educated as opposed to just academic achievements and accomplishments. But yet, we don't necessarily know how local government works. And that's what started to fuel my passion. And that's what sent me down the rabbit hole to kind of do some research. Cause I'm like, if I have a pothole in the middle of my road, like I truly don't know who to call outside of 311. But I just feel like as American citizens, like, yes, they used to teach civics, but just to reference my generation, I'm just like, we came into an era of tech and there's so much to be modernized and there's just like so much space to elevate and kind of update our communities. So that's kind of what brought me to where I'm at now. The seat opened up to run a city council. I myself had to do my own research a year ago to see what city council even means. And city council writes the legislature. They make the laws. They control the city's budget and how programs and how it's devised and divided up into the city. And then lastly, just how the land is split up. So if you want to bring a new park or a playground, city council carries a lot of weight. And I myself wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, and to your point, local politics are to a certain extent more important than national politics because those are the things that affect the person on a day in, day out basis, whether in their personal life or in the commercial business context. So it's important that people get involved, understand who they're voting for, and just be activists, be reactive, not proactive. It's very easy for us to kind of sit here and complain about what's going on in society or what we don't or do like, but the the proper citizen is one who actually does what you're doing, and they go out and they want to change, and they attempt to effectuate a change. So I commend you for that. You had said a couple things I do kind of want to revert back to, specifically your HR experience. Mm-hmm. I think whenever we're, again, kind of going back to the representing businesses, and HR is just such an important skill set to have, being able to work with and understand people and what makes them tick, what bothers them, what makes them excited. And if you understand those things, and again, I want to hear your insight, but it's just my position. If you understand those things, you can get those people not necessarily to agree with you, but to work with you on a proactive basis. And I feel like we've lost a lot of that on both the national and local level of politics. Would you agree?
No, absolutely. Michael, I think what's most critical being in HR, aside for, like you said, like holistically and inclusively bringing everyone to the table and kind of tempering the conversation so that together you can reach whatever the solution or the path forward looks like. Most importantly, it just boils down to accessibility and transparency. And that's what we were highlighting as members of like our communities. Like, we just don't know what tools are available to us and how to get to them. Once again, Michael, I only know 311. Like, unless if I'm going to go hop on Google to be like, how to, there was just so much. I mean, everyone can relate to how wild 2020 was. Go ahead. You look like you're going to say something. I'm sorry.
Hey, thank God for Google, right?
Yeah. Or as my mother says, Uncle Google. She's like, oh, ask Uncle Google. but to that point, it's just, last year was so crazy. I think it brought everyone to the table politically, and it had everyone scratching their heads to be like, how did we get to this state, whether you were on the right or the left? It had everyone at the edge of their seats. And that is what ultimately led to me being like, okay, I need to understand local politics and do a little bit more than just voting as my civic duty.
Sure. And you mentioned, you used the term, I think it was change agent, right?
Mhm.
Being a millennial, being a change agent. I think that's just a great way to characterize what the next generation has to do across various sectors of society, right? Everything has changed, to your point, like the way we interact, whether it's virtually, the way we go to work, the way we commute, so on and so forth. But politics, for some reason, have not changed. They're very slow. It's almost like the practice of law, like those two pillars of society. They are very, very slow to change. And one thing that we do here at the firm is we consider ourselves very tech savvy. We're a young, energetic firm going out, meeting people like you and agents of change and so on and so on and so forth. And I couldn't agree with you more. Um, could you tell me a little bit, I guess, about, I know you're very big on affordable health care, affordable housing, policing, public safety. What else do we have here? Quality education, quality of life, all super, super important things. I guess on a high level, how would you be a change agent for all of those things?
I think more importantly, if you like, take a look at my district is 70% Democrat. So
Wow.
at the header topics and the policies, you see affordable healthcare, affordable housing, you immediately say like, that's not really conservative views. But as an HR, I'm able to tie that to conservative views. Like, what does affordable housing look like to a conservative, especially when our taxes are up the wazoo, right?
Sure, sure,
There is no return on investment.
zero.
So one thing that I pride myself on is taking the time to have the conversations with my district from that conservative lens, but under the topics and umbrellas that they're familiar with, right? Because I think in mainstream media, they're so quick to use certain catchphrases and, immediately you think that's Democrat, that's Republican. But what I'm finding on the one-on-one conversations, there's so much more in common then we have differences like public safety. Who doesn't want to feel safe? You understand? Like,
Of course,
the, and tailoring it to our local community. Not all communities are the same.
absolutely. And going back to your point about discussing real estate, right? A lot of our clients, real estate owners, they don't need to own, big commercial buildings. They may own a two-family house in Southeast Queens, which, let's face it, that's the American dream, right? That's people come here, maybe they buy their house. If they're lucky, they buy a small investment property and they're looking for that ROI. But when you have things like universal rent control that's on the docket to be voted by city council. I mean, it used to be anything. It currently is anything over six units and up, but now they're looking to make universal rent control on investment properties. So two families, three families, four
Yes.
families, with taxes and inflation going up year over year. How is the everyday citizen, whether Democrat or Republican,
Republican.
supposed to realize their American dream in the
No,
most
absolutely.
common way, which is real estate, small real estate?
And then you add to that, if you add another layer, you're paying over because the average home in like Southeast Queens is about 500,000, right? Where the national house range is about 200,000. So we're more than double the amount nationally. Then we have schools that are underperforming. If I may share a number with you, in
Sure.
my district alone, from third grade to eighth grade, the proficiency in reading is only at a 37%. So your taxes are through the roof, and almost all parents are busing their kids outside of the district to get a quality education. And your
It's
zip code should
unacceptable.
not determine where you're going to school. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I'm an advocate for school choice, but I'm also an advocate for fixing the schools within our district because there's no reason we should be paying so much.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. And with respect to that, I mean, how would you characterize your decision-making style? How do you think you're going to be able to accurately represent the people in your district within all these matters and more?
Really great question, because it becomes a people human experience. And it, like you said, it's not like a right or a left. There are so many different categories that we're underperforming in the policies that I'm highlighting, whether it's within affordable care, because coming out of COVID, right? A lot of people kind of are still grasping and trying to get their minds around mental health. Like, not everyone had a smooth sailing pandemic. I mean, like, all of us are left reeling and trying to make sure that we have that preventative health care for them. So you want to make decisions for the entire community that where it's not, no man gets left behind or woman gets left behind.
Sure, sure, sure.
So when decision making, like in HR, you want to take care of the greater good for all. And then should there be any caveats, you know, you handle it case by case.
Yeah, and I think that all those things play into our colloquial understanding of the American dream, right? People come to this country and they do all the things that we've discussed, like your parents, my parents. And I mean, how do you think New York specifically plays into the American dream? I mean, obviously, historically, we know, you know, Statue of Liberty, all those great pictures from cinema and all that. But the New York today and the New York tomorrow, what do you think we need to do to kind of recapture that American dream here?
Absolutely. We need to give investors a reason to stay in New York. Everyone wants to talk about taxing the rich, but the top 1% pays for 40% of the taxes here in New York. If we're not giving them a reason, if we're not incentivizing them to stay, what will New York look like? So for me, that'll be like the starting point. Right now, everyone's trying to escape. The ones that are investing and making sure that we're the crown jewel of the world, right? Everyone wants to come to New York, but right now, New York is truly reeling.